Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us for pricing. Team Mosso at the1916company.com for pricing. Today, we are discussing a very rare, exclusive, seldom seen launch from 2018 from Audemars Piguet. This is the Royal Oak Extra Thin, the Jumbo, reference 15202IP. IP after the reference number means grade 5 titanium and platinum. So the watch we have today is the Jumbo with platinum bezel and intermediate links, titanium case, crown, and primary bracelet links with a clasp to match. The aggregate of the two, when combined, feels, well, roughly like a steel watch in the hand, but the aesthetic is anything but. Now, traditionally, this has always been a thin watch, hence the nomenclature, extra thin. 39 millimeters in diameter, it is only 8.1 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 48.8 millimeters, and from end link to end link, 52.3 millimeters. So I'm going to throw this on my wrist now, out of the hand, onto the wrist. My wrist 16 centimeters in circumference, and I can wear it easily. You can see the bracelet splays out on each side. So while I advertise every Royal Oak and offshore, especially on a bracelet, as being bigger than its rated size, this is about as compact as it gets with men's Royal Oaks. So I could recommend this for a wrist of 14 centimeters circumference or larger, though I have seen women with smaller wrists successfully wear the watch. Again, 16 centimeters circumference right here. The watch is flat, and with a sloped bezel, it will slide underneath a dress cuff. Taking a look at the bracelet, this is what you pay for when you buy a Royal Oak. When Gerald Genta created the first Royal Oak in 1972, reference 5402, he envisioned it as a bracelet for a man, as he prided himself more on jewelry design than watch design. He identified as a jewelry designer, so he wanted to create a bracelet for a man that just happened to include a timepiece. And so the finishing of the parts was very important to him. And so it takes between 9 and 11 hours to hand finish these bracelets when they're in metal, 3 times that when they're in ceramic. This, being both platinum and grade 5 titanium, two challenging materials, would have taken closer to the 11-hour end of the finishing spectrum. So you could see the integration of case into lugs into bracelet, and then the taper of the bracelet down toward the clasp. You could see the polished bevel that swells on the lug hoods and then continues perfectly aligned down the shoulders of the links. And the tolerances, if I pull this bracelet to one side and put pressure laterally on the links, I can see the sweep of these links as they taper down, but I cannot feel the steps between them. That's how tight the tolerances are. This is why I say that's what you pay for when you buy a Royal Oak, the artistry of hand finishing all these pieces. Look, even the ends of the intermediate links inside the bracelet, they are polished. The intermediate links are platinum. The rest is grade 5 titanium, which is the good stuff, more durable, though just as light relative to grade 2 titanium. We have removable links here, fixed in place using screws. So if you wish to size this at home, easy to do with a jeweler's screwdriver. Double deployant clasp with media blast and satination. You can see it's a sequential close, one side before the other. We have that little AP logo in platinum with a media blasted interior and a polished and faceted exterior. Twin trigger release, so you must press both triggers to open it. It will not pop open inadvertently. Now you could see that the assembly here of this bracelet is a little bit different than on a standard Royal Oak. So more extensive disassembly under certain circumstances is possible, because there is that center retaining screw that is part of the assembly scheme. Though for the most part, if you were sizing this up, you were going to use these removable links. Taking a quick look at the case, you could see we have perfect continuation of the facet of the bezel into the case back, and that we do have that rounded octagonal form to the bezel, which was inspired in 1972 by a vintage diving helmet. Now you can really see alongside ultra white platinum that these white gold hexagonal bezel bolts on the Royal Oak bezel, they are not perfectly white. There's a little bit of warmth to true white gold, and you can see it here. There's a contrast between white and a bit warmer. Hexagonal forms, and yes, they are bolts. That's how the slot can be aligned all the way around. We also have a hexagonal crown, which is a tribute to those bolts. You can see the bracelets held to the case using screws and bars, which is a more secure arrangement than spring bars, something I like to see on a premium watch. It is a push-down crown with a 50-meter water resistance rating, so I don't recommend you swim when the water resistance rating is 50 meters, but you don't have a screw-down crown. It's funny, I sometimes show these watches on my Instagram and people are like, oh, that's over-polished because it's got a polished bezel. No, folks, quick study. When you see a fully polished Royal Oak bezel, 9 times out of 10, that means platinum. Okay, dial. This is the familiar petite tapisserie. It is the smallest hobnail that you can get. There's the petite, the grand, and the mega. And the mega's on the offshore, and the mega is stamped. The petite and the grand, they are always cut by a pantograph, a vintage 19th century style mimicry lathe that takes a big template and then inscribes all the detail from that big template onto this tiny dial blank, which is then alternately galvanized and lacquered to create the gradient fade you see right here, a unique treatment reserved for very special Royal Oak models. So if you look carefully, you can see that there are between 10 and 20,000 little dots on this dial because the template that's copied is much more sophisticated than just the large hobnails. So there is a lot of detailing, and if you look carefully, you can see that there's sort of concentric circles radiating out from the center because that's how the pantograph inscribes, almost like a spiral going out from the center. Now we have white gold hands, indices, and AP logo so that over time these elements will not oxidize, tarnish, or discolor. That's the advantage of having gold dial furniture. And you can see it is quite well loomed, no problems on that count. Because the movement architecture dates back to 1967, it was developed on commission by Jaeger-LeCoultre for Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, and Vacheron. The movement that resulted was the JLC 920, and a Bausch only ever used by the Holy Trinity, never used by JLC itself, and never authorized for use by any of JLC's other movement clients. So you can see, because it is an older architecture, we have this semi-quickset feature where you seesaw between 10 p.m. and 12 a.m. to advance the date. And the movement itself with the date is only 3.05 millimeters thick, so some tricks were played by JLC back in the day to make this movement one of the thinnest automatic winders ever created up to that time. It's also finished to a level that most other Royal Oaks, and in fact most other Audemars Piguet watches, are not. Now, AP for a long time has built this movement in-house, so while it's based on ancient JLC engineering, it is AP's own movement with their own movement number 2121, and fabricated and finished in-house bevels, as well as bevels within. You can see the bevels on the bridges, but also see them on all of the screw and jewel sinks. Broad abrasive wheel stripes laid down, overlapping across the bridges. Solarization on ratchet wheel and crown wheel core. All screw heads black polished with chamfered slots in circumference. Locating pegs used to locate bridges on the base plate polished on their heads. Engine turning around the base plate all the way around. A free sprung, gyromax style balance for precision of adjustment and greater shock tolerance. Unidirectional winding with a 40-hour power reserve. There is no stop seconds function, but then there is no seconds hand, so that's not a problem. And 36 joules, it beats at the vintagey beat rate of 19,800 vibrations per hour because, as I discussed earlier, this is a movement whose architecture dates way back. You can see that the rotor has been satin finished, media blasted, polished, and beveled with sharp interior angles where bevels converge. It is a masterclass in fine finish, and because of the time necessary to build and finish it, the current Royal Oak Jumbo no longer uses this movement. It is not what I would consider an upgrade. This is the Royal Oak Jumbo that I love, and a very rare, exclusive, and unconventional version of it. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.